before profit, Rita Lacey, Fianna Fáil, Michael Gallwey, Renua, that's correct pronunciation?
Correct, yes.
Come in there, Michael, a little bit closer to the microphone, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Firstly, we'll start with Rita. Rita, what sort of a reception are you getting on the doorsteps?
Well, I'm delighted you asked me that question, Damien, because I went out full of trepidation, having listened to stories of, bygone canvassers and canvassing and being told they were torn apart. But I have to say, either it's good or maybe it's suspiciously good. It's interesting, and I find that it's not the party that's interesting people at the moment, but the personality.
Okay.
And how you come across them, and it's very much about the relationship on the doorstep. And that relationship either works, it connects, or it doesn't. But I find once that relationship is established, they start to open up. And if you were to ask me what is the main issue for people, particularly on the ground, is that people in Tramore want Tramore to be regenerated. How they want.
We'll talk about that in
okay.
a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Una Dunphy, people before profit. What sort of reception are you getting on the doorsteps?
Great. I think people want a voice for change. They're fed up of the same old establishment politicians, and I think a lot of people feel that we haven't got a good representation on the council that reflects the population, and that is a problem. It's a problem for women. A lot of people who were involved in repeal with me, we thought a couple of years ago we would have had more standing, but it's too difficult for people to stand when they're full-time work, young children, and the commitments that are there. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at again when we go forward. So people are looking for a voice for change. They're looking for somebody who will challenge and stand up for them.
Michael Gallwey, Renua, what sort of reception are you getting?
A very good reception, thanks very much. Renua is a relatively new party, about 5 or 6 years old. So it's the second election that that Renua would be involved in. I would say Renua is a party positioned as a strictly pro-life party and a socially conservative party. And as we know, in the abortion referendum, 33% of people voted against the introduction of abortion to this country. So there's a very big constituency of people who are not represented. And when it came to the voting in abortion into this country, only 15 TDs in the Dáil opposed it. So there's a very a poor representation for pro-life constituents.
And you're hoping to tap into that?
Well, there's been a very good response because people are very pleased to have a pro-life and socially conservative candidate turning up on the doors, who they, as an alternative to the parties, all the other mainstream parties who promoted abortion and introduced abortion.
And we'll come back to that in a few minutes. I want to talk specifically about Tramore and the regeneration of the town centre. You mentioned it earlier, Rita, and what's happening there, and how it's going to be done. Like, what sort of a difference are you going to make in the council to regenerate Tramore?
Well, I think first of all that you have to be somebody, as Una says, who's prepared to challenge, and that's not simply challenging in the council. But if you want to regenerate your town, you've got to be able to challenge what's happening in the town. And I think bringing people together, bringing communities together, who actually know how, or who can work together about the regeneration, to actually identify what is regeneration, what are they looking for, what is the goal, to come together and to work towards that, and then to have the support of the council or your councillor to back that up.
Michael Gallwey, what sort of a difference would you make regarding regeneration of Tramore?
Okay, well, I have a long background in business. My profession is a buyer, so I have a commercial background. I'm used to delivering projects, and I would be very ambitious for Tramore in terms of a tourist destination and to improve the infrastructure and indeed to encourage investment. And I think I'd be a good spokesman for the town and a good representative for the town.
That sounds all very good and worthy, and everybody would agree with that, but specifically, anything specific?
Well, one thing, for example, that's come up and on the doors is tourism and provision of, say, a municipal campervan park. A lot of, say, that would be very common in France, for example, and that would make it a more friendly, tourist-friendly town for camper vans, for example, and that's something simple that could be done.
Okay,
Yeah.
Una Dunphy, People Before Profit, Regenerating Tramore.
Yeah, Regeneration Tramore have 2 campaigns on hold that are ready to go as soon as this election is out of the way. The Grand Hotel, I'm going to have a public meeting and get a campaign going to get the Grand Hotel sorted. It's all very well with the regeneration plans, having flower baskets everywhere. They're lovely, but we have a white elephant in the middle of the town that is the Grand Hotel. It needs immediate action. And I'm getting...
But you don't own it, like it's owned
No,
by
I don't.
somebody else.
I
so.
know I don't own it, but I think the town can get a good campaign behind them and get onto the council to start action and real action, so that we get the hotel up and running again as a
Okay,
business.
and the second thing?
The second thing. It sure cut me off there. The second thing is the schools. We're in dire need of more schools in Tramore, and there's 2 empty schools in the town owned by the church, and they're trying to sell them to the highest bidder, and it's just not good enough. We need to have choice in the town. We need parents to have choice with where they send their children to school. Any other towns the size of it would have had 2 or 3 secondary schools. We've only got 1, and it's a PPP. It's not the kind of model we need.
A texter, Jimmy, has texted in regarding the comment you made earlier, Rita Lacey from Fianna Fáil. Do you think you'll ever get a politician on who'll say they got a bad reception at the doorstep? They can't be all getting good ones. As somebody previously said, there's 500 liars for every one person that says they're going to vote for you, you know?
Well, I did. Generally speaking, yes, I did. The reception is absolutely tremendous. But you do get the odd one, who's going to say to you, look, I don't vote, I don't believe in you, you're all a pack of liars, or you should be at home rearing
most
your
people
children,
are
your
nice.
grandchildren. But in general, most people are nice, and that is the question that you're asked. Now, you walk away, and the thing is that you take absolutely nothing personally. It's not about you. And whatever it is, I think it's behind that door ever before you knocked on it.
Okay, we've got a lot of issues that we want to come, and we're going to take a quick ad break now. We're going to come back to all those issues now shortly after the programme. We have 3 election candidates coming in the Waterford City West Tramore electoral area. We have Una Dunphy from People Before Profit, Rita Lacey from Fianna Fáil, and Michael Gallwey from Renua. We just had a text in there for Mag. Nothing has been said so far about mental health services. I had politician after politician at my door have read their leaflets. Mental health services need a 24-hour support system. No person should have to go to A&E in crisis. Suicide in the southeast is very, very high. We also had somebody else earlier on texting about the PH House thing, basically saying that very difficult to talk about these things without going into the big issues. Michael Gallwey, anything about mental health service that you would like to see done differently down here?
Well, all I can say is my experience of it is really just from talking to people as individuals. And I know some of those people have had to avail of the services locally, and you get mixed reports. I think they're doing the best they can. The services that are there. I definitely think. Well, all I can say is, it's an ongoing issue for people. I don't know enough about the services being provided, but certainly it's an issue. Yeah.
Rita?
Well, I'm actually on the local forum for mental health. It's just up and running about six weeks at the moment, and it's mainly for service users. But I have joined simply to get a handle on what exactly is there. There's a huge deficit in mental health, not only in that, but in trying to access mental health. And I think that's the issue for being a local councillor, that you have to be able to help people to access every single service that they need. Now, mental health there's still a lot of taboo around mental health. So that's part of the inaccessibility to it, where people actually get to such a bad state before they begin to speak about it. That we need mental health services at the very beginning. We need to prevent rather than trying to find services that will cure it or deal with it.
Una Dunphy?
Well, we have a creaking and dysfunctional health service, and because I got involved in the cardiac care campaign a number of years ago, I saw that there was a lot more wrong with what we're getting as a regional health service in Waterford and the southeast. So I got involved with the Still Waiting Health campaign, which is a national campaign which incorporates a lot of campaigns around the country, and mental health and particularly CAMS in Wexford are involved in that. So what we need to do is we need to get Sloan to Care, and this is part of Still Waiting's campaign, to get Sloan to Care and get the RECOs in, which will mean that Waterford will be a regional area that will have the best of services for everybody involved. And unless we pressurise the establishment parties to do that, nothing will change.
Michael Gallwey, one of the things you mentioned right at the start is the pro-life stance of the party.
Sure.
Is that debate over?
Absolutely not. I think there should never have been a referendum on pro-life, in the sense that I view the life of the unborn as an inalienable right. So I don't recognise that a government or people have the right to vote away a life of anybody, the unborn or the living, for that matter.
And the fact that the referendum,
or sick people, for example.
and the fact that a majority of people have voted against that view, obviously.
Well, I think it's a view that can be overturned. I think we'll possibly see it overturned in America. I think it's a very live issue in politics. We know in America, for example, a significant it can make or break a president on where they stand on pro-life issues, and I believe it'll be the same in Ireland as well. 33% voted against abortion, and I want to speak for those people.
Dunphy?
It was less than 33% in Waterford. The people have spoken on that. They've agreed to choice. We're a pro-choice nation, and we will stay a pro-choice nation. That debate has been had.
It's taking the life away of an unborn person.
That's
I would just
Rita?
like to say, Damien, that as far as I'm concerned, we are all pro-lifers. And those of us that aren't have serious psychological disorders.
Only
But
only 4 people voted against introduction of abortion in Fianna Fáil. So Fianna Fáil is not a pro-life party, and neither is Fine Gael.
Rita, Fianna Fáil?
Well, I think Micheál Martin made his stance quite clearly when he came out and he said that he had made the decision
They're
that,
not a pro-life party.
that he is a pro-life, that basically everybody has the right to make their own decision. This is not a political decision. It never was a political decision. But it's an
It
ethical
should say
issue.
it was put in the Constitution because the right to life is an inalienable right. It's not something that people should be voting on.
Una?
I'm delighted this time last year that we got this over the line, and we're not going back to it again. People voted for pro-choice, pro-life ideas, and they are the choice of the woman, and it's a medical decision. We've had this argument already.
Una, a number of people texting in, people before profit, your policies would not see fit if you were in government.
What policies are they?
Economic policies, they're saying.
Yes, they would.
They're saying they're mad.
They're not mad. I'm getting this from a certain cohort of people, and they had a meeting in the Rue Glen last night, of all places, and they thought it was Waterford. But our policies are all costed, our policies are all sound, and if anybody wants to challenge them, I'll speak to them on them. But I'm not going to discuss every policy online now.
Renua's policies have not made a reflection with the electorate up to now. Basically, you're sitting at, I don't know, is it 1% in the polls or even less?
Well, I would
Like people before profit, maybe on the other side.
I would dispute the accuracy of the polls, and after all, Renua is a relatively new party. It's only our second election, so people.
Oh, in a while though.
Well, I mean, but typically people go out and campaign at election times, and so all I can say as a Renua candidate in this area, I'm getting a very good response. I'm very confident that I will get sufficient votes to be elected, particularly as we're very clear on things like pro-life. We're clear on Ireland being a nation state, and we want to restore our sense of Irish identity in this country, which we think has been eroded by the established parties.
You're eroding the Irish identity, Rita? Established parties?
Political correctness, yes.
What's political correctness?
Rita?
Well, I don't know when you say eroding.
I think that.
And what's political
Certainly.
correctness now, Una's asking?
Well, political correctness is a situation where people are being are compelled and coerced into thinking and speaking in a certain way, and I see that as very prevalent in Irish society now. It's not.
Would you be on the Peter Casey side of things then when it comes to when you're talking about immigration? Is that what you're raising?
I think all things like immigration and should be up for discussion. It's an important thing. We, as a country, we have a finite amount of resources and taxes. Irish people are paying a lot of taxes, and there's we're paying a significant amount of taxes.
We're a hugely wealthy country.
And there's only so much that people can pay in terms of opening our borders up and letting a lot of people in. If people come in, we have to be fair and provide them with the same services, and therefore there has to be proper border controls in this country.
Okay, let Una come back on that, Una Dunphy.
We're a hugely wealthy country, and if if pro-life is anti-migrant, that's not very Christian.
Just let
That's
Una
not very
finish there.
Christian. How can you have such a contradiction that you're a pro-life, a Christian party, and then you're anti people who are fleeing wartime situations?
I'm absolutely not anti. I'm not. That's
We have
absolutely not true.
finite wealth. We do not. We have huge wealth.
Well, how
Huge wealth.
come we owe 200 billion the country owes 200 billion, which by the
Because
mismanagement of
we
Fianna
refuse
Fáil.
to tax the wealthy. We refuse to go after the landlord classes, and we refuse to have a fair society. That's why we are in the situation we're in.
If you have an income over 35,000, you're paying 49% tax. That's that's a very harsh tax regime. The people can't really afford to pay any more taxes.
Look, I think we've heard this over and over and over again.
No.
We're been absolutely screwed over by people on the right, and who are saying that we don't go after the wealthy. We need to go after the wealthy. There's huge wealth in this country, and we can afford much better services, better health, better education, and better housing. And housing is at an all-time low at the moment. And if the landlord parties are allowed away with what they're doing, we're just going to get worse and worse.
Just let Rita come in here, please.
I'd just like to say that whenever there is an argument, it's always an argument around the marginalised and those who have no voice and have the least power of all. When we talk about migrancy, we are bound by laws. We're bound by refugee laws. We are bound by the Geneva Convention. We are bound by our own laws. And most of all, we are bound by sort of Christian duty.
We should be ruling our own
Michael,
nation.
I'm sorry.
Just let Rita finish for a second, Michael.
But I have to agree that when we bring people into this country, we should have resources for them. They should be allowed to work. They should be allowed to contribute to the economy. Otherwise, we end up with what we have today, like direct provision, which is actually killing the spirit of the people who came looking for freedom in the very first place. Integration models are all over the world. I worked with the Reception and Integration Agency developing a model here in Waterford called Integrate Waterford. And I would just like to say, all of these models and all of the work that we put in, they lie on shelves with dust on them, and nothing is put into practice. And this is something, as a local councillor, that I would be calling on again.
Michael?
Yeah, so look, all I'm really saying is that there's a finite amount of resources and taxes, and a country has to be run responsibly. And the laws that Rita is referring to, this country needs to govern itself. We're not governed by the United Nations or the EU. We need to be a nation state, Irish people governing our own nation. And I'm for strengthening that position and restoring our identity in that way. And the taxes we pay are, to provide services. Irish people and the people and foreign people working in this country, the taxes we pay are to provide services for the people working in this country and living in this country. And of course, we have to receiving asylum seekers and indeed receiving, people from other countries as well. That's perfectly correct. But there have to be proper limits there.
Well, Dunphy, do you think Michael's arguments or people that are proposing what he's talking about will get any kind of airing on the streets?
I think it's common sense and people will vote for that.
Una?
No, I don't think so. I think Irish people are very open-hearted, and the thousands that we said we would commit to bring into the country from war-torn Syria and other places, we haven't even met that yet. But that came on the back of a huge amount of people in Ireland vouching their own spare rooms, and I think we are very generous as a nation, and we want to help other nations. And I think that this right-wing anti-migrant thing won't get any. You'll get the Peter Caseys, they'll be flashing the pans, but there's too many of them jumping out now as right-wing candidates, and I don't think they'll get any traction.
William in Agetech has said people voted for choice. The bitter people who want to remove choice and the people of Ireland need to move on. People voting for choice, Rita, they'll have a choice in the forthcoming elections to vote for you?
Absolutely, and I would love to be a representative for the people of my area.
And all the other councillors are saying the same. So what difference are you going to make? Will you pedestrianise Tramore town centre?
Yes, is what I'm saying.
Michael, would you pedestrianise Tramore town centre?
I don't know. I mean, I need to think about that a bit more.
Do you have a view on it? Like you're a business person, you say you've got, Tramore. Do you think it's
which part are you talking about? I mean, you're talking about down.
We're talking up around where
from Cahill's right down as far as where the V Bistro is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Una, would you?
Well, I think shop owners in the town would have my guts for garters if I said yes to that, because they've told me that pedestrianising it completely would ruin their businesses and that they won't be able to deliver. I think these things can look great as optics, but I think we need to talk to people and discuss whether or not they're viable. And if they were to pedestrianise anymore, they would need to have public transport in the town so that older people can get from A to B, because it's all very well having a nice town centre, but if people can't access it like we have in parts of Waterford, it's useless.
Michael, what's your main policy apart from the pro-life thing? Anything else you're saying to the people on the streets? 20 seconds.
Well, I mean, I'd obviously support the main projects that are, you know, in Waterford, the North Quays, the cardiac care, the new mortuary facility, the airport runway extension, and you know, application for WIT as a university status.
Rita?
I would like to say that economic development is absolutely key to any community. Personally, I'm about equality and inclusion and community spirit and community work, and I do believe that with my experience I am well equipped
Una?
to be that voice.
I think people need a voice for change. They need a strong voice in the council. They need somebody who will challenge, and they need to vote for people who have track records, not people who've just appeared for the election.
Folks, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Stay in your seats there for a minute, because have you any favourite poems, by the way? No? Are you into poetry?
Mine is I See His Blood Upon the Rose.
Lovely, I like that one. Somebody just been on to us, the Clouds of Heaven from Yeats. I've spread my dreams under your feet, tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.